opportunity to chat to the guys, and Francis for facilitating it on Zoom. It's really a follow-on from what Bob presented last time, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be there, but I know it would be fantastic because I've heard Bob before. But I just wanted to take it not even one stage further, but cement some of the things that he was talking about how we present ourselves. And of course, we're presenting ourselves not in front of an audience live, but virtually. And so I wanted to go through a few things that certainly when I was on QVC and how you engage people, how you get your message over in this kind of format. And so I haven't muted anybody. I noticed that you've muted yourselves, which is lovely, but I've left it open for you to interrupt, to ask questions. If there's anything that is a burning issue for you, then I would love to hear, because not only would it be a burning issue for you, it would be a burning issue for everybody else. So as I always say in these kind of situations, this is not a lecture. This is a discussion, and the focus must be on what your needs are. There are so many of us here, which is great, thank you, that I can't do a round table. But if there's a really burning issue, either put something on the chat or raise your hand, or just say, Howard, yes.
No, sorry, I was nodding, just listening to what you were saying, and I realised that I could put a chat through the chat item at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all, thank you. And please do that, because I will go through it afterwards, and any questions that either you want to ask privately or just want answered, I will go through them for you. So the basis of this conversation today is threefold. It's about the equipment that we use, because that's absolutely key. How you are seen and how you are perceived is essential. It's the non-verbal part of the communication, if you like. Then I'm going to talk to you about content. What is the kind of content that we need to be able to get our message across, either in these Zoom kind of conferences or indeed in videos, because now is the time to create videos for your websites, to put up on the social platforms, on LinkedIn and things like this, because actually the key thing for me here is that we are now released from the tyranny of the email. So often we rely upon emails to get our message across, and it can be misread. You know, we know what we want to say, but words are such that they can be misinterpreted. So now you can release yourself from that tyranny, because it is acceptable to say, I wish to make contact with you in this video format. And so that's the key here. Think in terms of connection. And Anik said it right at the beginning, and I know it's something that Steve Friedman talks about, communication. This is the time not to fall back, but reach forward. It's about time to keep faith with your clients and your customers and your colleagues, because by so doing, you are cementing the relationship now for when this horrible situation resolves. And the reality is that things have changed. Things will never, ever be the same again. And we have to adapt to this new environment. It was a horrible thought that somebody planted in my head, that the Great Plague of, 1400s lasted, in fact, for 400 years, because the plague came and went until the 18th century. And the reality is something has changed here, but we haven't changed. Our ability to communicate and make connections is so important. So don't fall back, reach forward, speak to your clients, customers, and your colleagues, keep the faith, and they will keep the trust with you. So the other thing I would say here is that you don't have to worry about making notes, because I've created 3 slides. I'm not going to put the slides up, because this is a lesson for us all to learn as well. this communication medium is about eye contact. It's about speaking to the individual. It's about really making as much of a physical engagement and connection as you can. So when you are presenting, when you are creating your webinars, and actually I think we need to think of a new name for webinar, because when I hear the name webinar, I immediately think, okay, I'm going to go on, I may get some information, but then they're going to try and sell me. And I think we need to find a different word for webinar because it has the wrong connotation. So don't put up your slides. I would even counter to say, don't put up video. We have, even if we've got an hour-long discussion, to break the connection, the physical connection, by putting up a slide or putting up a video, that's the wrong thing to do. So it's about chatting, getting information, answering questions, and that. So first of all, let's talk about equipment. The most important thing is the camera, to have a good camera. Now, looking around, a number of you are very, very well shown, so that's absolutely key. So have a good camera, have a good microphone. You can either use a lapel mic, or if the microphone on the camera is good enough, then that's excellent as well. So think in terms of how you communicate effectively. If you are using a laptop, the key here is eye contact. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I'm actually not looking at my screen, and that's a tendency lots of people have. They look down to see how they look. That's not what it's about. It's about communicating and making eye contact. So I'm looking down the throat of the camera. I may look down. If somebody else is talking to me, I may look down, and so I can see their facial expressions, because the one thing we need to look at now is facial expressions, body language, to see if the message is getting through or if we're perhaps losing people. So it's about that key engagement, which is a bit about delivery, but we'll come back onto that. If you're using a laptop, then position it maybe on some books, so that eye line is right. If you've got a phone that you're using, put it on a tripod rather than holding it. Put it on a tripod, because then that makes for steadiness as well, and people won't then get disrupted by the actions of the camera. So those are the two important things. Microphones we've spoken about. The other thing with Zoom, using Zoom, I've noticed often when people mute or take their camera offline, all they have is their name. It's an opportunity to get a message across. So if you are going to take your camera offline, have your photograph there, but have a professional photograph there, or have a key message there, because sometimes you don't necessarily want to be seen. So think about what your panel will convey when you are not on camera yourself. Also think very carefully about the background. Now, I've contrived, as you can see, the background is where my books are displayed, which is also a way of getting a message across. So think about the background, tidy up the background. If you are conveying, and it's about how we are perceived again, make sure the background has your key message. Francis has his message up there. I've noticed a few of you have your banners, very, very clever. So think carefully about your background, and think about what you're wearing as well. Now, I've made a mistake this morning, and I would have been chucked off the set of QVC because my shirt is clashing with the screen. So that could be very disruptive. I'm sure it is. So apologies for that, but it's a key message again. Think about how you look, what your background is, because it's all about perception. There's this rule that people perceive us without any, what is it called? Non-verbally, when people perceive us non-verbally. So initially, think about that. But the rules then change, because once you start talking, and your facial expression and the tone of your voice comes in, then people are listening more carefully. But it is the initial perception that is absolutely key. So any questions about that, first of all, while I take a drink of water? Okay, right, so let's go on to the next element. And as I say, these are on slides, so don't have to worry about remembering it. Now, this is about content.
Sorry, Dexter, sorry, I've got one question. Is
yes.
it just stripes that clash, or is it anything?
It is normally just stripes or checks that clash. Okay. So thank you for that, Richard. Yeah, so that's, just be aware of that. So let's talk about this content. The important thing especially when you are having a business call, as you would prepare for any meeting, a face-to-face meeting or a discussion, as we are here, think about creating an agenda. The important thing is it is not only about your agenda, it's about the agenda of the people that you're speaking to. So don't wing it. Because this is valuable time you've got in somebody's room. It may be their study, it may be their front room, wherever they are located. You have been invited into their area. So you don't want to waste the time of just chatting to them or pitching to them all the time. Now is not the time to sell. Now is the time to influence and persuade, to understand what another person's needs are and see if you can fill those needs. And so the agenda is absolutely key. So you know where you are in the discussion, where you want to be in this discussion, and more importantly, where they want to be in the discussion. So make it an agenda. And that's true of your videos as well. I'm working with a number of clients at the present moment who have got really good products and really good ideas that they want to put out. And this is the time of the QVC again. And I make no apologies for mentioning that, because QVC was about creating an emotional connection, telling stories that engage with people to influence and persuade them to buy what we're selling. And there's a subtlety to that. It is not about down the throat pitching. So some of the videos that you may want to create, and again, this is the absolute key to this, the overarching element of this discussion. Now is the time to make videos. Now is the time to communicate with people directly. And you can do this in a number of ways. QVC did it very cleverly by having two people in the video, in the discussion. They were live, remember. And so what would happen is one would be the expert, us, and the other one would ask the questions that everybody would want answered. So you don't necessarily have to do videos down the throat of the camera. You can do it virtually. You can invite somebody who knows about your business, or you prepare questions that they can ask you about your business that illustrate your expertise. So it isn't about, I do this, and it's my mantra, you've heard this before. Don't tell people what you do. Tell them what you have done for others. And do it in a storytelling way. So, there's a number of us here who work very closely with clients. Think of what your clients, what you have done for your clients, and when you speak to your clients, what they say was the maximum benefit that they got from you. Now, I'm working with another guy, Olivier Caron, who's very, very good on analyzing business and how to move business forward. And what we are doing together, we are helping people identify what their skill sets are. Because there are going to be businesses that can never recover. One of my clients, unfortunately, they had to put themselves into voluntary liquidation. They supplied mobile toilets at events and garden parties and things like this. Their order book overnight stopped. There is a background story, which I won't go into because it's very personal for them. but they took the view that it was just too much aggravation. But the key thing here is that for those, they still have skills. They still have skill sets which can be utilized elsewhere. They could advise on event planning for other companies and other organizations. So part of what we're doing, and this is what I recommend you to do. It's about this, don't fall back, but reach forward. Speak to your clients, speak to your customers, and find out what you did for them that was really helpful. Not our perception, but their perception. Because when you do that, when you understand, first of all, what skills you brought to bear to help them, and the testimonials and the valuable testimonials are about what is the problem you resolved for them and what was the quantifiable difference you made for them. Now, with all of that, with your skill sets and understanding where else you can use them or how you improve what you're doing anyway, then the testimonials, the understanding about people's problems is what is the core of your video presentations. Don't talk about what you do. Talk about what you have done for others and the problems that you've solved for others, because people are having problems. And so if they can experience how you resolve these situations for others and step into that experience, because remember, you're in, once again, no apologies for saying this, you're in people's homes. You're not in their business workplace. You are in their homes. Therefore, we have to be much more personal. Merit, did you want to say something? Or was it just a cough?
No, I was
okay. So I hope that's helpful. So also think in terms of, and we do this all the time, especially when we're on this kind of environment. Think of your 30-second commercial. And you've heard me talk about this before. The rules haven't changed. What has changed? The environment. But think about how you can encapsulate what you do for others in that 30-second commercial. Illustrate the problems that you have resolved for others. And then people will listen. One of the greatest challenges of having this amount of people is that you can't see their faces necessarily, especially if you're on speaker view. So just think very carefully about what you do and what you have done for others that will resolve those issues and state those issues. As I say, I'm working with a number of clients who at the present moment are very, very carefully identifying what are the problems they resolve, because that's what people want now. And we want people to change their mindset. It's not about problem mindset, but solution mindset. So you need to state what the problem is, and then you need to state what the solution is. And again, you've heard me say this, but it's even more impactful now. Think in terms of 2-minute stories that contain an incident. What was the overarching problem that you resolved or saw? The action, what is specifically what you did to resolve that problem, and the benefit. Incident, action, and benefit. What was the benefit that you brought? What knowledge did you bring that resolved a situation for them? So I hope that's of value to you. Think in terms of your 30-second commercial in these kind of environments, the 2-minute stories that you can translate into a video. And there's a different mindset now about video. At one time, it was 2 to 4 minute videos. Now it can be, as long as the information is valuable and the presentation and the tonality that you bring to bear is interesting enough, because people want information. They want resolution. So perhaps it's not even benefit, but it's a resolution out of their specific problems. So just think about that, and it takes time. This is a hands-up situation here. As you know, for many years, I worked both in front of the camera and behind the camera at QVC. And I did my research. I found out what were the valuable aspects of a product were, the 3 to 4 key facts about it, that then I could introduce. I thought about how do I make the emotional connection? How do I engage with the audience? and re-engage with the audience. And that was all live. And the key there was that it was a conversation. And again, I'd say that perhaps is something you could do. Rather than have to speak down the throat of the camera, you can get somebody virtually who knows you, so you have the two pictures alongside each other, and they can ask you the relevant questions so you can show your expertise. Or if you have a family member with you, then you can do it very easily and just have a much more wide angle camera, which I think, you know, the one that I'm speaking to, which is a Logitech, that will allow you to step back and have that kind of image. So in QVC, I spoke off the cuff, although I did my research, but live. And so it wasn't scripted. And the challenge is that when you have that kind of thing, when you are faced with a camera and you've got to speak to the camera dry like this, I had real problems. I couldn't necessarily sit in front of the camera here and speak naturally and give the right information. I had to keep on looking down on my script, or I had to use a teleprompter facility, which actually and ask Francis about this, because he knows that there are certain apps that you can get which act as a teleprompter. The problem is, if you are not versed, very, very carefully versed with the teleprompter facility, then you can go dead behind the eyes. And as I've said before, eye contact and creating the excitement and the passion is really important in this environment. So practice. I had to practice. I'm doing a series of videos which helps people with their content, with how they deliver the information to camera. But that took practice. So, you know, there's a word, what is it? Practice makes perfect. Perfection is for the gods. Forget about perfection. Just do as best as you can and practice, because practice becomes permanent. So keep on doing it. Have fun with it. That's the key here. Because if you're having fun, and it's the same rules that Bob and I talk about, if you're passionate about what you do at the front of the room to the audience, then it comes through on camera as well. In fact, the reality is you have to be a little bit more than you normally are, which can be a bit theatrical. But, you know, especially now, it isn't just about the information you're conveying. It isn't about the facts. It isn't just about the emotional connection. In fact, I'll rephrase that. It's all about the emotional connection. Because the reality, once again, is that emotion first, logic next. People buy emotionally, they decide logically. So when you convey your emotion in this kind of environment, or when you are on video, that is what will sell. That is what will make people buy what you're offering. Does that make sense? Yeah? Any questions so far? Because we've talked about essentially three different medium or different ways of getting the message across. To create the agenda, think of a 30-second commercial, think of that incident, action, and benefit framework for stories. Any questions? Who has a question?
No, I just reinforce one of the things you said, please, Dexter.
Yes, please, Bob.
Yeah, just that last bit you were talking about, this drive for perfection that people often have. I completely agree with you. My favorite phrase is, it's about connection, not perfection.
Yes.
And I think that just encapsulates it. If people remember about connection, then they'll get it right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Point very well made. And really it is about that communication, making that connection, making that emotional connection, and realizing, and nothing has changed here. In fact, it's become even more heightened, that people want resolution from their problems. And, you know, there's a phrase which, let me see if I can remember it. It's resolving a problem to making somebody, I was going to, let me use the word that I really want to use, happy. Moving people from a position of problem to happiness. Because happiness isn't transient. Happiness is something that stays with you. It's that from problem to pleasure. Pleasure is what people normally say, but pleasure is very, very quick. It's a high. It's something that we get if we have a chocolate bar or a drink. We get a high, but then we come down again. So it isn't any more about pleasure. It's about creating happiness. And I was going to use this phrase a little bit later, but there is one particular quote which really for me is so important, and it's so important now. And it's Maya Angelou. Does anybody heard of Maya Angelou? Yeah, Bob has. Maya Angelou, unfortunately, we lost her last year. She was a black woman who came from very, very poor background, almost slavery background, very poor. And she wrote a book called I Know Why Caged Birds Sing. And it was about her life. And one of the quotes that always stays with me, and if you get nothing else from this discussion today, this is important. People may forget what you said. They may forget what you did. They will never forget how you made them feel. And that's absolutely important. It isn't now about selling. Selling actually is a dirty word. What it is about communication, influence, and persuasion. So let's offer you one further framework. I call it the 4 cornerstones of a business selling presentation, an effective presentation. And that is your personal credibility. What is it that you've done? How long have you been doing it? What are the things that came out of you that doing it? The personal credibility. Think about how many years you've been in the business, what skills you bring to the business, why that is so important, because that's the first element. And this again can be a 2-minute presentation. What are the personal credibility that you bring to the situation? Why should people listen to you? Why should they speak? I very recently, in fact yesterday, put out something on LinkedIn, and I really had some problems about doing this. And it was a very direct message, and it said, it is not enough now to be an expert at what you do. It's not enough to be a good speaker. It is not enough to be an excellent presenter. What you have to be is an influencer and that's the word, an influencer. And what's the other word I've been using? Influence and persuasion, a persuasive person. And I said, and this was the bit that I really worried about, what right do I have to say this? And it was 16 years working in front of the camera and behind the camera in QVC, selling millions of pounds worth of products for major brands and teaching others to do the same. This is why you need me. And I had a real problem about putting that, but you have to be direct. You have to now be able to blow your trumpet, but not in terms of only about what your skills are, but how that translates to others. So the second element of these 4 cornerstones is the company credibility. What are the companies that you've worked for? What are the results that you've gained for that company? Because by reference and by definition, when you talk about the companies that you've worked with, and it was very interesting to hear that about Lego. In fact, I made contact yesterday with one of my old clients at Lego, who's been transferred from China now to Germany. And I think lucky for him, I wouldn't want to be in China at the present moment. And he's the European customer service person for Lego. So I've just slipped that into the conversation. I've talked about the relationship rather than the work that I did for them. But it's given a credibility side. And I could mention other companies and accountants' practices and things like that. And that's what I recommend you do. Think about who you've worked for. So personal credibility, company credibility. Then it comes down to that 3 to 4 facts about what you actually do and what you've done for others. So that's part of that previous discussion about getting in touch with your clients and your customers and finding out What is it that they perceived that you did for them? And I make no apologies for repeating that, because it's an absolutely key importance. So I'm going to ask you a question now. Why is it so important for you to make contact with existing and past clients? Anybody?
It reminds them what you do.
Right, absolutely. What else? Anybody else? Certainly reminds them.
They will come up with referrals for you.
That's the key. You may not be able to do business with them, or it may not be appropriate to do business with them until after this hiatus. But you're right, Tony. It's giving the opportunity to find out what you did well for them, and then you can say, well, who else do you know that would benefit from that same kind of expertise? So you're right. There is an opportunity to tell them what you do. It's an opportunity to remind them how good you are, so there may be business from that. And the key, to get referrals. So that's one of the key elements of doing things online. Thank you for that.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I just on Thursday contacted a number of family lawyers who refer me mediation work, and out of it have come a couple of mediations, just reminding them that I'm still open for business. Absolutely right. I can't promise with everybody that contacting former referrers will lead to work, but have a try, have a go. We can't just sit here idle. We've got to go out there and do our very best for our businesses and for ourselves, and for ultimately for clients or potential clients, particularly when we are all very experienced people and have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something to this, Dexter, as well.
Yes, please, Ray.
In this new economy, this new way of working, I've always believed before this came along, people were busy being busy. Now they have time to listen. And I think that if you can make that connection, you can follow some of your guidelines, as you say, about your solutions, you might be able to talk with them, and I mean just talk with them, have some rapport, where you can really find out what some of these issues are and try to solve them. But I do think today people are listening, but they're still in a little bit of panic. And so the other thing I would say is be realistic. I'm very much in tune to SMART goals. The dust hasn't quite settled yet. So don't be unrealistic about what you're hoping to get. You've got to relax a little bit, and then it'll become clearer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I certainly agree with that. It's again one of my mantras that you may have heard. That in any conversation, they should do 70% of the talking, and we do 30%. And our 30% is what? What would you reckon 30% is, Ray?
Asking questions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There is another thing. Every day I'm talking to old clients, even though I'm not doing business with them. I must have phoned about 4 or 5 clients to find out what's going on in their business and what it is out there. Because if we're working from home, we really don't know what's going on out there in their business, and how to come out of it afterwards, and because eventually when I start appointment making, hopefully getting more business in, it's a different approach now when we come out the other side, a different way of marketing yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And things have changed, and things will never ever be the same. We may be having no more social distancing, although from what I understand, the social distancing will be in for some time. But you're right, the old way that we have done business has changed forever. And it is, and again, a lot of us have.
May I just say, Dexter, we've got different values now, totally different values with life. We're going to act completely different now. Yeah. What was important isn't any longer.
I hope you're right. And Adam
is. So do I.
Adam is on this call, and we had a long discussion yesterday about the changing values of people. People are certainly feeling isolated, and the discussion we had, and this is one of his motivations now, is about the NHS clap is not enough, because I wonder how many people, and I've thought about this as well, how many people are thinking to themselves, do I really have to go out and clap again? And I think there's pressure from neighbors about this. If my neighbors are out there, and I have this here because we're part of 2 blocks, and people are coming out on their balconies and they're clapping. And I think, you know, but people are looking around and thinking, you know, who's not there? Who's not there clapping? And I think we do. There is hopefully there will be a greater social responsibility, or will there, because we have become isolated. We are going back into our own shells. And the reason that I'm making that point is that it is incumbent upon us to reach out. Again, that phrase, don't fall back, reach out, because I think people will become insular. I hope what you're saying, Leslie, is right. I hope we will have a greater social conscience, but I think people are very protective of themselves and their families at the present moment.
Can I just say that as a virtual assistant, I've done a lot of work. A lot of my clients are remote anyway, but I have also spent a lot of time, you know, the email has gone out the window. They have been phoning me, they have been WhatsApp video calling me, because actually they've missed that face-to-face connection. Yeah. But what a lot of the conversations have been are, I'm running my business and I need to tweak it. I've done this, 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 and this. And like you say, 70% of the conversation is them talking. Yes. And the 30% is me just saying, yeah, that's right. That's okay. That's comfortable. You know, and a lot of the time I've got one client in particular that's required a lot of help, who just at the end of the day has just said, you just get me. And all I've done is sat there and gone, yes, you're okay. You're okay. Yep. And I think that's part of it. You need to just keep connecting with your clients just to check in, because they've suddenly realised that you are human. And likewise, your clients are human back. You know, there is that human relationship now, not just the business one.
And thank you, Karen, because it is very important to understand people's motivation and to be there for them. And that goes back to the Maya Angelou quote. But it is also about our survival as well. So we need to be able to ask, bless you, we need to, we need to move the conversation to where we want the conversation to be.
So there's been a lot of setting up of extra things, because, let's say, working remotely, I'm quite comfortable doing that.
Great.
And just showing them different ways of working and setting up things slightly differently. Yeah. That I do a business MOT process with some people, and that's normally face-to-face. Right. But I'm doing that online and saying, look, you've still got a business and we're going to tweak it so that it can work online.
Excellent.
And work remotely. And people are finding comfort in that. Good. Because they haven't lost what they knew. Yeah. And you take it in the steps that you take it, small ones, big ones, however they are comfortable, to move it forward and keep it moving forward.
Great. And I think that is absolutely right. That when we do have that focus, it's that agenda question again. That, you know what your values are from the way that I've described it and how you gain that. But then also move that conversation along. This whole discussion today is, how do we make more business? How do we gain business online? And that is, it's about controlling the conversation. Know where you want to end up. Don't just go along and be comforting to them. Certainly that's part of it. The trust element is absolutely key. And the engagement is then the key. And it's the actual last bit of that 4 cornerstone is, what is it in for them? What's in it for them? Because when you understand that, then you can move the conversation to gain what's in it for you as well. So
and that's it, isn't it? Part of it has been quite an emotional, like you say, people are still slightly panicky.
Yes.
There's a lot of emotion in it.
Yes.
And as an outsider coming in and having that conversation, it's easier in a way for me to sit there and say, well, can you think about it like this? Can you think about it in a different way?
Yes.
So from that, different processes are coming out. So that's, yeah, so I've had some clients that I haven't spoken to for 6 months ring me up and say, you're virtual, help me do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great.
Karen, I also would like a word with you after the meeting. And I also feel as though people feel as though, as they're being isolated, that they're the only ones that are really suffering, and they feel as though they're not doing enough, and they're screaming, what do I do to bring in the business?
Yeah.
I think people have to be a bit more honest to know that they are also suffering, and have an arm out there for everyone.
Yeah.
That there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we can be their guides. We can help them understand their capabilities as well. That's our responsibility. It isn't only about doing business. It certainly is about doing business, but it's also nurturing and caring.
And targets every day to make sure. So even if you're not doing any work that's bringing in financial, there are work now that's fruitful at the end of it if you start doing things now.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray, did you want to come in?
Well, only in so much that, you see, for the last year or so, I've had a grave concern about this wonderful digital age that we've had, where everyone has been wanting to be behind the computer to do their business. Everything you've spoken about today, I spent 20 years teaching sales training, and basically this is fundamental sales training, but now using something like Zoom. I'm a great believer in face-to-face meetings. Okay, we can't do that, but we can develop our skills in front of a camera, but still follow a process to win business at the end of the day. The only issue I see right now, the biggest challenge I've experienced, and I'm sure I'm not alone, and that is it's okay talking to existing customers. It's very difficult at the moment still to get new ones to, if you like, come online because of this uncertainty out there. But I think that will also calm down.
I think it's a very good point that you've made, and I think that really part of this discussion is about maintaining communication. The other part is about this video creation, because when you post these videos, when you know what the content is that is going to engage with people, because you know what the problems are out there, then that is the way in which you will gain more business or new business, by posting it on LinkedIn, by posting it on Facebook and the other situations. Because when you do that, if it is a key message that is valuable, it will be passed on. So it won't just go out to your first levels, it will go out to your second and third levels.
Yes.
Look, the key here is about sharing. There's just a couple of other things, and I'm very aware of time here, that I wanted you to join in and have conversation. I just like to get a couple of other points over. When you're making the video, think in terms of subtitles as well. Now, there is a facility on Zoom where you can add subtitles. The challenge with Zoom is that when your video is finished, then somebody else's video comes on. But there are other facilities like Camtasia. Have a chat with Francis, because he will know all about these facilities. And Camtasia is a way of being able to video your desktop as well. So if you want to illustrate something, or add something on a whiteboard, you can do that. You can do it with Zoom, but there are other facilities. But the key message here is think in terms of putting subtitles on your videos, because some people, especially at night, if they're sitting in front of the television, will watch something on their iPad or their phone or whatever the mechanism is, that they won't necessarily have the sound up. So understand how you can put subtitles on your videos as well. And it taps into the different way people receive information, visually, auditory, and where we want them kinesthetically. We want them to feel that we can help them. So yeah, just another aspect of how you communicate. I just want to go into the last bit, which is the delivery mechanisms. Now, I've already spoken to you about using your eye line and looking down the throat of the camera, because then people feel that you are really communicating and connecting with them. Also, think in the different ways that you can present the information, that a QVC style interview may be the way, and it may be the way to start. What you need to do in situations like that is really think about, gained again from those discussions with past clients and existing clients, what are the key attributes you bring to the conversation? And then somebody can ask you that question, well, why should I use you? Where is your expertise? So when that happens, it's again, it's that not pitching down the throat of the camera, but an overheard conversation. That's what made QVC so effective, that people felt that they were listening into a very important conversation. And when they did that, and I'm very happy to work with people to actually do that. We would need to work out what the key message is. We would want to work out what the key selling element is. But we could still do it on a split screen and have that kind of conversation. So I'm very, very happy to do that for you. Remember also, and I haven't done it today, and I should have done it, with these long conversations that we've had, we've been talking nearly for an hour and a half now, especially when you are the new word for webinar, whatever that may be. Invite people if they want to go and grab a coffee, if they want a comfort break. You know, treat it exactly as you would in any live situation, because the same niceties apply. Somebody, you know, may need to rush off, so allow them to do that, because that again is the personal, emotional key elements of connecting with people. So just think about that. We've talked about the 70-30 rule, listening or asking more deeper and in more searching questions than before, and that's key. As Karen said, you know, when people turn around and say to you, yeah, you get me, that's wonderful. What we want is for people to turn around and say to us, do you know what, I never even thought about that. Because that is going to be the difference between why somebody uses you or somebody talks to a competitor. Yes, you need to make that connection of understanding their business and their problems. But if you can come up with something that they've never even thought about, and actually it talks about what Leslie said before, that understand what's happening in the marketplace, go outside of your knowledge, find out what other people are talking about. Because we have the resource now, you know, we have the time to do that kind of research to make our business conversations even more impactful. Does that make sense? Good, okay. And the other thing, especially when you are running a webinar, new word please, or these kind of discussions, invite people to join you 5 minutes before the event. Because then you're able to get their sound up, the vision up, to make sure that everybody is connected. Because people, I know it sounds strange to say this, but people's time is valuable. Your time is valuable, so make the most of it. And if you have an audience, respect the audience. Make sure that they are there, they're listening to you, and everything is working. So that really
Can I add something to that, Dexter?
Yes,
because this is personal experience with so many people now using Zoom and alike. I think like a normal appointment, you should have it in your mind, a start time and a finish time. I've had too many meetings, family mostly, who go off cooking dinner. You know, it is chaos. Yes. And I think you have to have some, like a normal meeting, you have a start time and you have a finish time, and know that if you're invited to extend it, great, but assume that that meeting will finish at a specific time.
In fact, let me draw on that, because it's an extremely good point. The fact of timing an appointment, what happens when you're running close to time, and as you heard me, I just said that we're running close to the end, and you're quite right, you have to respect people's time, because their time is as valuable as yours. The key thing is what happens when you're coming to the end of a conversation, your allotted time, and you want to get another point across, and you say to the person or to the group, can I just take a couple more minutes of your time just to make another point? If the consensus is yes, what does that show you?
They're interested.
More than that, what does it show you? They're interested, and therefore it might be. Say again, Francis.
Yeah, they want more value. They can see the value right now.
It's a buying signal. If you're having a chat and you're coming close to your allotted time, and you ask permission to carry on, which is respectful, and that's how it should be, start and finish in the time you say you will, and they say, well, let's continue the conversation, that's a buying signal. That means business.
Yeah, they're highly engaged.
Highly engaged, highly engaged. And that's what it's about. It's about engagement. It's about enlightenment, telling them something that they don't even know about, or confirmation of something they do know about. That to entertain, we still have to be entertaining, especially now with all of, we've heard this, with all of that rubbish that's going on outside, this silent killer. People need to have fun. It's very interesting for me that a couple of the videos that I placed up on LinkedIn of all places, which is a professional network, that are pure fun. I posted recently that wonderful Morecambe and Wise and Andre Previn thing, you know, that it's classic. And that got more views than any of the valuable information I could give them. So people, make it fun as well with your videos. Have some fun with it, and then the fun can be transmitted. And
you need to show some personality on LinkedIn, not just business. Personality.
Yes, well, you know about this. You know, LinkedIn is not a forum for being starchy and ultra professional. It's the platform for people seeing who you are.
I think also you have to be very purposeful. And I think one thing that, I mean, I've just done little things that should help people. So I have all my Zoom calls in one. I have my tasks in another and my notes in another. And the reason I say that is because when you do engage with people, or you offer to give them information or help right now, or you promise to do something, you must do it like you would face to face. I think it's really important that, you know, people are adjusting and working from home, both sides. And I think it's very important you behave in a very logical and organized manner and do get back to people.
Now, an accountant would say that, wouldn't he? But the reality is quite right. You know, don't just let the day drift.
You're still only professional. You're still working. You're just working from home. So get back to people promptly. You know, have meetings that are to agenda and finish on time. Just because you're not sat in your office, it doesn't make any difference.
Be structured. Be kind to yourselves as well. You know, that we have an opportunity to go out and walk. Take that opportunity. Spend time Zooming with the family or having virtual drinks with your friends. We're doing a lot of that, and actually that's about mental health as well, our mental health and their mental health. So yes, be kind to yourselves, but be structured, because actually, you know, I had a fear, and I'll voice this here. I had a concern with so much going on the net, on the internet, that I felt, was I being left behind in what I do? And so I took the view, it's not about being first. It's about being the best you possibly can. So if you're feeling that you're not structured, you're losing time, you're not really focused, now you can do it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Now is the time. So many of you, thankfully, are coming on these kind of discussions because the thirst for knowledge is really important in this isolated world. So yeah, be kind. Take what you need, learn what you need.
Thank you, Dexter. Very good. I just want to remind everybody the meeting is closing at 9:30 exactly. So if anybody has got another question for Dexter, now is the time.
Give him a clap.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dexter. It was very good.
Can I just add one further thing, Anika? I was talking about Olivier Caron and myself. We are running mentoring groups, virtual mentoring groups. There is a session that I think it's on the 20th, which is next Monday.
11, you said?
Say again.
20th at 11?
Yes, 20th at 11, just for an hour. We've had an introductory, and we will be having another introductory session on the 27th to outline what this is about. But if you want to join us for an actual meeting, then that is available. And I'm happy to send out the invitation, the Zoom invitation, when we finish today. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, that would be useful. Thank you, Dexter. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us. Another successful webinar from Moor Park Business Club. Wow! And the next one actually will be on the 29th. with Rakesh is going to talk to us how we can get the business to be sustainable in these difficult times. So I'm looking forward to this. And also watch out, I try to publicize other webinars of interest. I know that Chris runs a lot of webinars. Shirish tonight should be a good one. So watch out. For the ladies, Dexter is going to talk again at Lady Val's networking lunch. So that should be interesting.
That should be very interesting.
Very good. So yes, do join us. There's another guy, I will mention his next webinar, a guy called Frank Furness, also runs amazing webinars. So I think you should try to join that. So, thank you very much, everybody, for being with us. And keep going, keep safe, keep strong, you know. And we need to get out of this positive and better than ever. So thank you.
Yeah, Anik, how will the presentation be shared with us? How will the session this morning be shared? Is Francis going to do that?
I will. I need Dexter. Can you stop the recording, please?
Yeah.
I will download it and upload it to YouTube and send